Yo, what is up everybody, and welcome back to another Madden 17 online game. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they've been trusting the process, to use some NBA terms, with what the Philadelphia 76ers do when they lose a lot of games and get high draft picks every single year, and they're hoping to eventually turn it around. Except the Jaguars aren't really trying to tank. They are just that bad, where they end up having one of the worst records in the NFL and one of the best draft picks in the next season's draft. And last year was no exception for that formula. They had promise entering the season. Blake Bortles had a pretty solid sophomore campaign. Both the Allens at the wide receiver spots both had big seasons. The defense is young and upcoming. We're hoping TJ Yeldon might have a breakout year, but the Jaguars ended up having a major losing streak midway through the season and ended up having one of the worst records. They got the 4th overall pick in the draft, and the Jaguars really, along with the Cleveland Browns, have been the biggest laughingstocks in the NFL the last 5 seasons or so. Pretty much ever since the end of the David Garrard era, kind of Maurice Jones-Drew era for this team, there's been absolutely nothing to really smile about. And you'd think maybe last year might be it, but it just never came through last year. They just never put full games together. Sometimes it was the offense, sometimes it was the defense. They were one of the worst teams as far as turnover differential. They had like the 3rd worst turnover differential, and that's not winning formula in the NFL, and here they are. But this season might be the Jaguars' year to actually take a big step forward. I hate to say it, because it's probably not. Something's probably going to go wrong with the Jaguars, but they might be changing the culture. They fired Gus Bradley, and they brought in Tom Coughlin as a big name executive person in that front office. And Tom Coughlin was, you know, part of the Jaguars' best years early on in their franchise. Coughlin was the guy helping them get to an AFC title game, helping them make playoffs. And once he left, it seemed like the Jaguars kind of left as well in their soul. So we'll see what they can do. They've been, you know, trying to get big money free agents the last couple of years. They've signed at least one big money guy, it seems like, the past 3 or 4 seasons. They have a lot of cap room since they don't have a lot of guys to pay. So, you know, no one really wants to go to Jacksonville as well, so they kind of got to overpay for the guys that they do bring in. But that formula hasn't really worked out, because the guys that they signed, like whether it's Julius Thomas or whoever else it may be, just has not worked out. And speaking of Julius Thomas, he's not even on the team anymore. He got traded away. But looking at this roster, especially when you look at the defensive side of football, it's a scary, scary unit. The good news for the Jaguars is that they drafted pretty well lately. The last couple of years, they've had some high draft picks, and they've done pretty good with them. The Blake Bortles, that's TBD, whether the Blake Bortles picks worked out. But after Blake Bortles in the 2014 draft, the names of these players that they drafted, these are all contributors. Marquise Lee, Allen Robinson, Brandon Linder, probably their best offensive lineman. Aaron Colvin, solid contributor in the secondary. Telvin Smith, who has a bright, bright future, and he was drafted in the 5th round. So that might be one of the steals of that draft. 2015 draft, Dante Fowler. He got injured his rookie year, so we're still waiting to see what happens with him. This could be a breakout year for him. We're hoping it's a breakout year for him. They got TJ Yeldon, who could be a solid running back. They obviously drafted Fournette this year, but Yeldon figures to be part of the rotation. Still waiting to see the rest of the draft class really come together. The 2016 draft class, though, a lot of promise from this draft class. Jalen Ramsey, really like Jalen Ramsey. They got Miles Jack, a lot of defensive players, by the way. Miles Jack in the 2nd round. Miles Jack showed some promise. We'll see what happens, though. It's kind of an inconsistent rookie year, so we'll see how much he learns from his 2nd year in the NFL. And then they got Yannick Ngakoue. I don't know how to say his name, but I feel like I should learn it pretty soon, because this man, he was a force last year. He had, I believe, 8 sacks. So that's something to build off of, and I don't think they really exactly expected him to have that kind of year as rookie year, but he was probably their best pass rusher last season. So we'll see what that translates into this year. But looking at the defensive side of football, it's a scary unit. Now, I mentioned they throw big money at people, and usually doesn't work out, but this season could be different. Last season, they actually signed Malik Jackson to a big deal, and that worked out pretty well. It helped them get one of the best rushing defenses in the NFL, and that's what Malik Jackson, that was part of his specialties in Denver, helping them have one of the best run defenses. So that Malik Jackson, they also have another big money guy in Calais Campbell. Now, Campbell, he's getting up there in his 30s, but there's really no sign to say that Calais Campbell is going to decline this year, all right? We're not going to look at in the future what this deal is worth. We're just looking at this year. And Calais Campbell is one of the best defensive linemen in NFL last season, and for his whole career, he has been consistently one of the best interior defenders in the NFL. So Malik Jackson and Calais Campbell can definitely lead this Jacksonville Jaguars unit to a top 5 rushing defense. Then you look in their secondary. They lost Jonathan Cyprien, and that's a big name to lose because he had a breakout year last year. He was all over the place. You know I love the sniper, but he's gone. He's in Tennessee now. But they got A.J. Bowie. AJ Boy was one of those like advanced analytics kind of guys where it's like you didn't really know what he was doing, but the advanced analytics guys absolutely loved him last season. They were saying he was one of the best corners. Then when you watch Houston Texans games, that you realize that this guy's actually pretty good. He had, good closing rates on the football. He had good timing, and he seemed to be in the right place at the right time a lot. So they really took a chance on him, though. He only had one good season, and those one-hit wonders, they come and go in the NFL more than anywhere else. So they got him, like 6 years deal. It was a major deal. It's like $70 million. It's a major deal to pay for a guy that only proved himself for one season, but to have him and Jalen Ramsey in the same secondary along with Colvin, and they signed Barry Church this offseason, that could be big things, man. Because I really like Jalen Ramsey, and he and AJ Boy, on paper, are one of the best cornerback duos in the NFL entering the season. Because Ramsey, he was a little bit inconsistent last year. He could become, more dominant, more lockdown. That's scary, man. Barry Church wasn't really too bad last year for Dallas. Dallas' defense wasn't that great, but Barry Church was pretty solid. So I really don't know what the thinking is in bringing in Church instead of Cyprien, but they got him. They got Deshaun Gibson, who was pretty underwhelming last season. The one thing that Jacksonville's definitely looking at for the defense is the pass rush. The dude I mentioned, Kui, I apologize if I'm saying his name wrong. I probably am. We'll see what he brings. Dante Fowler, definitely Dante Fowler to contribute, and hopefully Campbell and Malik Jackson can get some pressure inside. But that is mainly the big thing, and then we'll see what Telvin Smith and maybe Miles Jack can contribute in that pass rush game as well. They're bringing back Puz Lusney again. Puz Lusney, he's definitely been one of the better coverage linebackers in the NFL lately. This year's draft, they actually went more offensive side with the ball this year. A lot of times they've been going defense in the draft, but this year they say, you know what? We're looking pretty good. We like what we did in free agency. Let's focus on the offense. And they got a big spot in that second round in Cam Robinson, offensive lineman out of Alabama. That's a major need for this team because they got Jeremy Parnell, they got Brandon Lindier, but besides that, this is one of the worst offensive line units, and if Cam Robinson could contribute anything, that would be fantastic because I'm personally not counting on Brandon Albert contributing much because it's been a long time since Brandon Albert was healthy and doing anything relevant in the NFL. So, as far as that trade with Julius Thomas, I don't really see Brandon Albert. I think the Jaguars would prefer if Cam Robinson came in somewhere and contributed. A.J. Cann was drafted a couple years ago. We'll see if he can do anything. He hasn't really looked too good, and the Jacksonville offensive line can definitely bring down this team. They had an okay running game last year. The problem was really that they didn't have one consistent running back. Yeldon was in and out the lineup. Ivory was in and out the lineup. Denard Robinson was even in and out the lineup. He's not there anymore. But they got Leonard Fournette with the 4th overall pick, and they're hoping he has an Ezekiel Elliott kind of effect on his team. The problem is Leonard Fournette does not have an Ezekiel Elliott kind of offensive line to run behind. So it could be a little bit of a rough rookie year for Fournette. We'll see. Even if he's good, it's just that you don't know how much open holes he's going to have to run behind with this squad. And, Yeldon and Ivory will probably spell him a little bit. It could be a pretty good running back rotation. It's just I don't know how much yards they're going to find behind the offensive line. But really, the story of the Jacksonville Jaguars, usually we go offense and then defense, but I kind of did it reverse. Because the story of the Jacksonville Jaguars this season could really depend on one man, Blake Bortles. Just Blake Bortles. Blake Bortles can make this Jacksonville Jaguars team a playoff team, potentially. I'm not sure about winning the AFC South, but maybe a wildcard team. It definitely can happen. Blake Bortles can also make this Jacksonville Jaguars team a 5-11 team again, or a 6-10 team, or something piss poor, Jacksonville Jaguars-esque. It really all relies on him. He definitely regressed last year. We'll see what happens if they could bring back the Allens for a healthy full season with Marquise Lee. It's one of the younger and more promising receiving cores in the NFL. But even Allen Robinson, a little bit banged up, took a step back last year. We'll see if he could become that elite wide receiver that we thought that he was eventually becoming. And hopefully the other Allen can bring in something. And it really all depends on Blake Bortles, to be honest. To me, I think it all depends on if Blake Bortles is your franchise quarterback. This is just a huge year to figure out if Blake's the guy. If Blake's not the guy, they got to start looking somewhere else. I think this is the make it or break it. I don't want to say the make it or break it year because he's not playing behind a good offensive line. And it could affect his play, but you definitely need to see something out of Blake Bortles. And do I think they will see enough out of Blake Bortles to make the playoffs? I don't really think so. There's not any super elite teams in this AFC South, but there's not really any bad teams. There's not really any teams that you look at them and you say, oh yeah, they're going to be battling for a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. I just, I think Tennessee got a pretty solid squad this year. It could come down to division games, which Jacksonville hasn't really been too good at in the past. I don't think that they will make that push for a wild card spot. I think they improve a little bit this year. Not much, though. I think they're another 6-10 and 7-9 team in that range with the Indianapolis Colts. They definitely have the talent on the defensive side of football to make a push. It all comes down to Blake Bortles. I personally do not believe in Blake Bortles. I'm sorry, Jaguars fans. I personally do not believe in Blake Bortles to be the franchise quarterback, and I think that's what's going to bring down the Jaguars team this year. They were one of the worst in turnover differential last year. That could change with a defense that could get a lot of takeaways. I just think this offense is not prepared to take that next step, and that could ultimately hinder the Jaguars. But defensively, they have a lot of talent on that side of football, and it could be one of the best defensive units last year. They show potential that they could be if they add a couple of pieces, and they added a couple of pieces this offseason. So potentially top 5 run defense, potentially a top 10 passing defense. It just comes down to the offense, and I just don't believe in them personally. So Jaguars fans, let me know why you think I'm wrong and why you think Blake Bortles is the franchise quarterback, or why this defense alone could be enough to take the Jaguars to the playoffs. So we'll see what happens. This game was an absolute mess. I felt like there were a couple of bad breaks we got in this game, definitely. There was a couple of bad plays I personally made, a couple of bad decisions. Maybe we should have not went for a couple of 4th downs, but I don't know, just a couple of really randomly, like, did that really just happen kind of plays, and we're not meant to win these things. And then on top of that, the dude I picked or win against, he took the Atlanta Falcons and was like rushing 2 the whole game. So I think the win was really important for him to get in this game. So we ended up not pulling it out, but let me know what you guys think about the Jaguars in the comment section. Leave a like on the video if you guys enjoyed it. Subscribe for more, and I'll catch you guys next time.